Hello, friends. Welcome back to the cabin. Come on in and get comfortable. If we're meeting for the first time, my name is Mila, and for more than 15 years, my office has been a metal tube flying at 35,000 feet. I've spent over a decade and a half working for a major airline, crossing continents and time zones, and serving millions of passengers along the way. I've seen joyful reunions, nervous first-time flyers, and every kind of travel mishap you can imagine. But out of all the people I meet, my favorite conversations are always with my senior travelers. You bring patience, perspective, and stories that remind me why I love this job. Lately, though, I've noticed something that truly concerns me. Over the past year, and especially now as we settle into the new travel regulations of 2026, I'm seeing far more stress on the faces of passengers over 65. Airports have changed rapidly. They are more digital, more automated, more rushed, and far less human-centered than they used to be. What once felt like a guided experience now feels like a self-service obstacle course. I've watched kind, capable people become overwhelmed not because they did anything wrong, but because the system changed without clearly explaining itself. I've seen lovely couples get separated in terminals because one person understood the airline app and the other didn't. I've seen essential medications confiscated because they were packed incorrectly under new screening expectations. I've seen passengers miss flights simply because they didn't know the updated mobility assistance rules. These are not small inconveniences. These moments create panic, embarrassment, financial loss, and real health risks. And the hardest part is that most of this stress is preventable if you know the rules ahead of time. That's why we're here today. We're going to sit down together and take a calm, practical, and detailed look at how airport travel works in 2026, specifically for travelers over the age of 65. This isn't about fear. It's about preparation. It's about understanding a system that increasingly feels like it was designed by machines, for machines, and learning how to move through it with confidence and dignity. We're going to talk about the new digital identification hurdles that surprise so many travelers at check-in. We'll cover the updated process for requesting wheelchair and mobility assistance, because this is one of the biggest changes and one of the most misunderstood. We'll go over the specific rules for medical devices like pacemakers, CPAP machines, and joint implants when going through the new scanners. And we'll talk honestly about the health protocols you need to follow to stay safe and comfortable at 35,000 feet, because your body handles travel differently as you age, and the system does not automatically adjust for that. If you're over 65 or if you have parents or grandparents who travel, this conversation matters. I want you to travel with confidence, not anxiety. I want you to arrive feeling respected, not rushed. And most of all, I want you to feel like you belong in the airport because you do. Experience does not disappear just because technology advances. So let's begin with the first major shift you need to understand, something I call the digital gatekeeper. In 2026, most airlines have moved to a nearly all-digital check-in process. I know many of you prefer a paper boarding pass. I do too. Paper doesn't freeze, it doesn't lose battery, and it doesn't suddenly log you out. But here's the reality. At major airports like Newark, Atlanta, and Dallas, the system now prioritizes facial recognition and app-based check-in. And if you don't know where to stand or which line to choose, that's where the trouble often begins. This digital gatekeeper shows up the moment you walk into the terminal. In 2026, many airlines operate under the assumption that nearly everyone is checking in on a smartphone. That's why you now see large express zones filled with kiosks and bag drop machines designed for people who already have a mobile boarding pass. If you step into those lines without an app or without having checked in digitally, you can quickly find yourself stuck, confused, or redirected multiple times. Here is the rule you need to remember. You are still legally entitled to a paper boarding pass, but the system no longer makes it easy to get one. If you do not want to use the airline app, or if you do not own a smartphone, you must avoid the express and self-service areas entirely. Look carefully for signs that say full service or special assistance. These counters are staffed by human agents, but there is an important catch in 2026. Airlines have reduced staffing at these desks because their algorithms assume most passengers are digital. That means the human line moves slower than it used to. What once took 10 minutes can now take 40. I watched a gentleman in Denver last week miss his flight to see his grandchildren because the line to print his boarding pass stretched across the terminal and he didn't arrive early enough. My advice is very clear. If you are not using the app, you must arrive at least 3 hours early for a domestic flight. I know that sounds excessive, but this extra time is no longer a luxury, it is protection. However, there is a workaround that many people don't know exists, and it can make a huge difference. Most airline apps now allow a trusted companion to manage your check-in remotely. That means your son, daughter, or even a close friend can check you in from their phone, even if they are not traveling with you. They can then email you the boarding pass so you can print it at home before you ever leave for the airport. I cannot stress this enough. Print your documents at home. Having that piece of paper in your hand is your insurance policy against frozen screens, dead batteries, and confused kiosks. When technology fails, paper still works. Now let's move to one of the most critical and emotionally charged topics for senior travelers: mobility assistance and wheelchair services, because this is where many people are caught off guard. In the past, you could arrive at the curb, make eye contact with a skycap, and request a wheelchair on the spot. At many busy airports, those days are gone. Demand for mobility assistance has increased dramatically, which is a good thing because it means more people are traveling, but the system is overwhelmed. In 2026, most airlines strongly require wheelchair assistance to be booked at least 48 hours in advance and attached directly to your reservation. If you wait until you arrive at the airport to ask for a chair, you are no longer guaranteed help. You are placed on a standby list. I recently witnessed a heartbreaking situation where a woman recovering from hip surgery had to stand at the check-in counter for nearly an hour because she hadn't pre-booked assistance, and every attendant was assigned to passengers who had. Please do not let this happen to you. Even if you can walk short distances, if long concourses tire you out, book the chair. Airport terminals are getting larger, not smaller. In some newer buildings, the walk from security to the gate can exceed a mile. Using a wheelchair is not a weakness. It is a tool, just like your suitcase, and conserving your energy before the flight is one of the smartest travel decisions you can make. Saving your energy before the flight is especially important because mobility assistance in 2026 now comes with additional requirements that many travelers don't expect. If you bring your own mobility device, such as a scooter or an electric wheelchair, there are new Department of Transportation rules regarding battery types. Lithium-ion batteries are under strict scrutiny, and ramp agents are required to verify technical specifications before loading the device. If they cannot confirm the battery's voltage and safety rating, they are allowed to deny transport of the device. That's why it's essential to print the manufacturer's battery specification sheet ahead of time and tape it directly to the battery casing. This small step can prevent a major disruption at the gate. Now let's move to the area that causes the most anxiety for senior travelers: security screening. The new CT scanners introduced across most major airports are advanced and effective, but they are also more sensitive than older systems. If you have had a joint replacement, such as a knee, hip, or shoulder, or if you use a pacemaker, cochlear implant, or similar medical device, you need to know how to approach security in 2026. The old strategy of simply walking through and waiting for the alarm is no longer ideal. The current preference is proactive notification. There is a free notification card available on the TSA website that allows you to disclose medical implants before screening begins. You fill it out and hand it to the officer before stepping into the scanner. This changes the entire interaction. Instead of triggering alarms and creating confusion, the officer knows what to expect and can adjust the screening method accordingly. You may be directed to a different scanner or receive a targeted pat-down rather than a full search. This approach is calmer, faster, and far more respectful. If you have a pacemaker, it is especially important to be firm. You should not allow an officer to wave a handheld metal detector directly over your chest. If that happens, you have the right to stop the process and request a manual pat-down instead. It takes a bit longer, but your health always comes first. Never let yourself feel rushed into a procedure that makes you uncomfortable or could interfere with a medical device. Medications are another major source of confusion. The liquid restriction does not apply to medically necessary liquids, including insulin, liquid nutrition, ice packs for temperature-sensitive medications, and prescribed liquid medicines. However, these items must be declared and screened separately. I also want to address pill organizers. While daily plastic organizers are convenient at home, they can cause serious problems during international travel. In 2026, border agencies in many countries have increased scrutiny of loose pills due to stricter drug control policies. My strongest recommendation is to keep medications in their original prescription bottles with your name, dosage, and prescribing information clearly visible. This not only avoids legal issues, but also provides critical information in a medical emergency. A paramedic cannot assess your needs based on a container labeled Tuesday. Original packaging can literally save time and lives. Now let's talk about something that surprises many people: the Companion Gate Pass. In 2026, many airlines have formalized a system that allows a non-traveling family member to escort a senior traveler through security and all the way to the gate. This is called a non-passenger escort or gate pass. It is incredibly helpful for anxiety, mobility challenges, or first-time solo travel after a long break. To get one, you must request it at the check-in counter and present identification. The pass allows your companion to stay with you until you board. It is a powerful tool, but airlines will not offer it unless you ask. And knowing that brings us directly to the physical realities of flying at altitude, which we need to address honestly before you step onto the plane. Once you are actually on the aircraft, the physical realities of flying become more important than many travelers realize, especially in your 60s, 70s, and beyond. Cabin air is thin and extremely dry, and dehydration affects older bodies faster than younger ones. This is not about comfort alone. Dehydration increases fatigue, dizziness, and confusion, and it raises the risk of complications during and after the flight. Combined with long periods of sitting, it also contributes to the risk of deep vein thrombosis or blood clots, which is a serious concern on longer journeys. This is why I have a simple rule for my senior passengers, the 1-hour rule. You should never remain completely still for more than 1 hour. Even if the seatbelt sign is on, unless there is severe turbulence, you can still move. Rotate your ankles, flex your calves, lift your knees slightly, and shift your posture. If the sign is off, stand up and walk to the galley and back. Small movements keep blood circulating and reduce stiffness. Along with movement, compression socks are essential. Not regular socks, but graduated compression socks designed to support circulation. Many newer options are comfortable, breathable, and far less medical looking than they used to be. Put them on before you arrive at the airport so they are already working by the time you board. Technology can also play a role in your safety. If you use a smartwatch, enable fall detection and location sharing with a trusted family member. Airports are crowded, and if you become dizzy, trip, or fall in a restroom or hallway, that device can alert help quickly. I recently had a passenger whose watch notified her daughter after a fall, allowing us to locate her within minutes. For solo travelers, this type of technology adds a valuable safety net. Now we need to talk about one of the biggest financial traps in modern air travel: seat selection. Many seniors are tempted by basic economy fares because they appear cheaper. In reality, these tickets remove important choices. You often cannot select your seat, which means you could be placed in a middle seat, far from the lavatory. As we age, aisle access becomes more important, not less. You need to be able to stand up, stretch, and use the restroom without climbing over strangers. Paying slightly more for a standard economy or main cabin ticket is often a health decision, not a luxury. This brings us to the reality of overhead bins. Flight attendants are not required to lift bags into the bins, especially if they have injuries, which many do. If you cannot comfortably lift your bag above your head, check it. The fee is far cheaper than risking a shoulder or back injury, and that leads directly into the identification rules you must have in place before you ever leave home. Before you even think about packing or choosing a seat, you need to be absolutely certain your identification is compliant, because this is an area where there is now zero flexibility. As of May 2025, the Real ID Act is fully enforced, and by 2026, there are no grace periods left. If your driver's license does not have the required star marking, you will not be allowed through security. This applies even if you have been flying for decades. Many seniors no longer drive or still carry older licenses that are no longer compliant. If that's the case, you must either obtain a state-issued non-driver ID or use a valid passport. There are no exceptions at the checkpoint. Speaking of passports, this is the moment to check the expiration date if you haven't already. Passport renewal times are currently running 8 to 10 weeks, sometimes longer during peak seasons. Do not assume you have time. Also, take a careful look at your passport photo. If it was taken 10 years ago and your appearance has changed significantly due to weight loss, medical treatment, or aging, facial recognition systems can struggle. This is uncommon, but it does happen, and bringing a secondary form of identification can prevent unnecessary delays. Now let's talk about layovers, because airline booking systems in 2026 are far more aggressive than they used to be. To maximize efficiency, computers now sell connections that look reasonable on paper but are unrealistic in practice. A 35-minute layover in a large airport like Chicago, Atlanta, or Charlotte is not manageable for most travelers over 65. By the time you exit the plane, you may already be behind schedule. My recommendation is very clear. For domestic connections, plan for a minimum of 90 minutes. For international connections, aim for at least 2.5 hours. This gives you time to move at a safe pace, use the restroom, eat, and handle unexpected gate changes without panic. Airports themselves have also become louder and more stimulating. Bright lights, constant announcements, and crowds can raise stress levels quickly. If you wear hearing aids, the noise can feel overwhelming. Many airports now offer quiet rooms or sensory rooms, originally designed for neurodivergent travelers, but open to anyone who needs a break. If you feel overstimulated or your blood pressure rising, ask an information desk where the nearest quiet room is. It can make a remarkable difference in how you feel before boarding. Bluetooth hearing aids are another point to mention. They may briefly disconnect near security scanners due to radio frequency interference. This is normal. Do not panic. They will reconnect once you move past the area. Always carry spare batteries or your charging case in your carry-on. Never in checked luggage because once you're on the plane, access matters. Another area where senior travelers often run into trouble is code share flights, and this is something many people don't realize until it's too late. A code share is when you buy a ticket from one airline, but the flight itself is operated by another. For example, you may book through an American carrier but actually fly on a European airline. In these situations, the operating airline's rules apply, not the airline you booked with. This becomes a problem with services like wheelchair assistance, special meals, and seating requests. If you requested assistance on the booking airline's website, it may not automatically transfer to the operating carrier's system. If you are flying on a code share, you must call both airlines to confirm that your assistance needs are correctly recorded. This is one of the most common points where senior travelers fall through the cracks. Now let's talk about travel insurance and medical coverage, because this is not optional. Medicare does not cover medical care outside the United States. If you become ill or injured abroad, Medicare pays nothing. In 2026, travel insurance policies have become more algorithm-driven, especially regarding pre-existing conditions. Most plans include a look-back period, often between 60 and 180 days. If you had a medication change, a doctor visit, or treatment related to a condition during that window, it may not be covered unless you have a pre-existing condition waiver. The key detail is timing. Many policies offer this waiver only if you purchase insurance within 14 days of booking your trip. Buy the insurance when you buy the ticket, not later. I also want to speak directly to those of you who travel alone. I see many senior solo travelers visiting family or exploring the world, and I admire that independence. But safety comes from connection. Share your itinerary with someone you trust. Use the airline app's flight sharing feature so your family can track your journey. It gives them peace of mind and gives you a safety net if plans change. When you board the plane, communicate with the crew. If you feel anxious, unsteady, or have a health concern, quietly tell the flight attendant greeting you. A simple sentence is enough. We can watch out for you, bring extra water, and give you more time when needed. We can't help if we don't know. Travel in your 60s, 70s, and beyond can be deeply rewarding. You have experience, perspective, and appreciation for the journey itself. Do not let changing technology or new rules push you aside. With preparation and the right strategy, you belong in the skies as much as anyone else. I want to see you on my flights, hear your stories, and know you arrive safely. Take care of yourselves, keep moving, and travel with confidence.